Welcome to the podcast where mental health is at the core of what we focus on. We strive to develop people like you to maximize who you are and what you've been called to do by sharing tools and resources for better brain health. And now here's your host, Juan Garcia.
Hey everybody, thanks for joining us for this episode of Mind Yours, a podcast that we focus on mental health and peak performance. And it's Thursday, so that means it's Temperament Thursdays, where we are discussing the different temperaments that we all have. And a temperament is basically the way we have been designed, the way we have been wired. It doesn't change. It's not like the personality. Personality is usually what we use depending on what's happening, depending on how we feel, depending on the environment, depending on any emotions that have been affected. So personality is different. The temperament, however, it's in our DNA. It's the way we've been wired. And so part of what I want to do with this series of Temperament Thursdays is to change the language from a temperament being weird to wired. Because this is the way we are wired. This is the way we were made. This is the way that God designed us, and we should embrace it. I think that the issue is when we don't really know how we're wired. We don't really know our temperament, and that's why I want to make these videos to help you understand a little bit, and then hopefully you can sign on and you can take the temperament assessment. It only takes about 8 to 10 minutes at most, and you get a report. We can discuss it, and I think it's going to help in many ways, not only you for yourself, but all of those that love you and that you are in relationship with. I think it's going to be helpful so that you can kind of see certain patterns that come up. And so today we are going to talk about the sanguine. And sanguines are extroverted. They hate to be alone. They need people around them. I know sanguines that if they're alone somewhere, let's say they go away for work, they have to have a TV on or a radio station on so that it could sound like there's people with them. Extroverts, they're sometimes popular, enthusiastic. That's how they're known. Very affectionate, very joyful, very encouraging. They could be loud at times because of their temperament. And they can tend to also interrupt because they get so excited about sharing an insight or sharing something that it's not that they don't care that someone is speaking or something else is happening. It's just that they get so overwhelmed with the information that they are receiving that they want to get it out, because one of the things with the sanguine temperament is that thoughts and emotions are expressed outwardly. And the way sanguines process is all outwardly. Okay, so when a sanguine interrupts, let's say, they're not interrupting to be mean or to be inconsiderate. It's just that they're so overwhelmed with what they want to share, and the only way they know how to do it is outwardly. And so the more a sanguine is aware of their temperament in that area, the less and less they'll do it, because obviously it can come across as a little inconsiderate for those that don't understand it, especially those that are introverted, that are not used to having this, interruption, loudness, very, enthusiastic type of temperament. Okay, so the sanguine is an extrovert. The sanguine processes thoughts and emotions outwardly. Okay, they're more people oriented. So everything that they do is in connection with a relationship. So when I say people oriented, it means that they pick people over tasks. So we have two different types of people, right? In general, we have people oriented and we have those that are task oriented. Sanguines are people oriented. So everything they do it because it's connected to a relationship. Why? Because relationships are extremely important to a sanguine. A sanguine is, by its very nature, the temperament, the way that a sanguine is wired, is very, very into creating deep, meaningful relationships. Sanguines will give of themselves sometimes to a fault, because sanguines have such a high level of respect for relationships that if they're in a relationship with someone else that's wired differently, that may not see it to the same degree, they just give of themselves, and almost can get a sense as if they were pushovers. But that's just the way the sanguine is wired. The sanguine is wired to create deep and meaningful relationships. Let's talk a little bit about the strengths and the weaknesses of a sanguine. Some of the strengths of a sanguine is obviously people, fun. So for example, a sanguine would make a great salesperson. A sanguine would make a great speaker, public speaker, because they get energized by the crowd. A sanguine can make a great leader, pastor, a great person, that a radio personality that can really be out there and encourage and be fun loving. A sanguine is also the type of person that always sees the positive, the optimistic aspect of something, and that's a strength. That's a strength. Now, keep in mind, as we're talking about these strengths, that a strength always has the potential to be a weakness. A strength always has the potential to be a weakness. Why? For example, if a sanguine is optimistic about a situation, sometimes they're so optimistic that the situation may be unhealthy and they don't realize it, because they're trying to see the optimism aspect of it. They're trying to see what positivity they can get out of it. And when it comes to a dead end, a sanguine could kind of be in denial about that dead end and just continue to pour into something that really it's gone, it's dead. And so that's where the optimism strength of a sanguine can become a weakness, because they just may not know when to give up being optimistic about something. Okay, so that's one of the strengths of a sanguine. Very optimistic because they love people, they love fun, they're very creative, very inspiring, and very encouraging. So if you need someone to be encouraged, you can grab a sanguine and they will encourage the heck out of people, because that's just the way they're wired. Some of the weaknesses that a sanguine has is that they can tend to forget names, because they're so focused on, stories. They tell a lot of stories. Oh, I remember this time, and oh, what was his name? They focus on the story, the punchline, if you will, the issues that are happening specifically in the story, and they can tend to forget people's names. They go to events, they meet everybody, and so all those names are not registered in their minds, and so they can be a little forgetful with names. And to some people, that's important. And so you want to be mindful of that as a sanguine, that you want to make sure that you connect a name with a face with a name, so that it's not a weakness. Another weakness that sanguines tend to have is that sometimes they can volunteer for something. They get so excited about volunteering and being part of something that they won't show up. They'll just be so overwhelmed with getting pulled in different directions. They'll volunteer and not show up. And it's not a lack of commitment. It's not a lack of seeing the importance of whatever they volunteer for. It's just that they get so overwhelmed about seeing the meaningfulness of whatever they're volunteering for, that they don't realize that they have 46 other things that they have to do. And so it just falls into the cracks. So that's obviously a weakness that we have to acknowledge. The sanguine also tends to exaggerate. They can go fishing, they can go hiking, or do some type of activity, and they'll say, instead of catching 2 fish, they'll probably say 5, just because, to them it's not a lie. To them, it's just highlighting the importance of a good catch or a good day of fishing. They focus on the positivity of the story that they're trying to share. And so, but it definitely is a weakness, because it can become a lie where the sanguine is looking for the things in those stories as they exaggerate it that's going to fill their needs. And so that could be dangerous and a weakness. Also, another weakness that sanguines tends to have is that they can be considered scatterbrains. Oh, they're all over the place, Oh yeah, they talk to this person, they talk to that person, and they say, oh yeah, we're gonna meet on Friday, okay, and they tell 5 different people that they're gonna meet, and next thing you know, they're overwhelmed, and because they don't have that information organized in their heads. So that is definitely a weakness that sanguines tend to have. As we look at this, also remember that because we're wired a certain way, we have specific needs. And so let's talk a little bit about the innate needs that a sanguine has, specifically the sanguine temperament. Okay? So the sanguine temperament innate needs are easy to remember because they all start with A. And for the purposes of these videos, we're going to focus on 4 innate needs that we have to acknowledge that each temperament has to have it met. Okay? So each temperament has innate needs, meaning nothing can get those needs to stop being a need. They're there. God made us the way that he did with the temperament that we have, and we all have innate needs, okay? And so for the purposes, again, of the videos, I'm going to do 4 for each temperament. And the 4 that the sanguine has as far as innate needs, it's acceptance, approval, affection, and attention. So acceptance, affection, attention, and approval. Those 4 needs are super important for a sanguine to have met. Okay? It is important to know that because that is the way a sanguine is wired. If those 4 needs are not met on a consistent basis, then the sanguine is going to be unhealthy and potentially seek for those needs to be met somewhere else or in someone else. Now, I like to share this because I think it's important. As a follower of Jesus, which I always say I am, I just want to make sure that those that are new to the podcast are aware of this. As a follower of Jesus, we must have our innate needs met by God. And the way we do that is through the Bible, through reading of his word, and through having a relationship with him. Now, obviously, we're human beings, so there is an aspect of our innate needs that need to be met through other human beings. So it doesn't mean that we're only solely going to be fulfilled through God, although that is very possible. It just means that because we're humans, we also need those needs to be met with other humans, and that is the purpose of having relationship or fellowship, which is a kind of like a churchy word that we like to use. Fellowship, being together in community, etc. Okay, so those 4 needs are super important for a sanguine to have met: affection, acceptance, attention, and approval. For example, if a sanguine gets home from work, a long day of work, and the spouse is home, the sanguine would want to be acknowledged. So the spouse of the sanguine would simply have to say, hey, how are you? How was your day? How did it go? And just mean it. I mean, truly mean it, so that the sanguine can feel accepted, can feel acknowledged, and those needs are basically met in a very basic way. Obviously, there's deeper ways to meet those needs, but just as an example, because I believe that a lot of couples specifically go through issues not understanding that it's basically because their needs are not being met. So something as simple as that, an acknowledgement, really, hey, how was your day? How's it going? knowing that the sanguine is very enthusiastic, is very joyful for the most part. So you want to make sure that you're targeting to meet the needs in that area, speaking their language, okay? And that's how it would maximize the temperament of a sanguine to really be healthy in different ways. When those basic needs are not met, as I said, there's the tendency to seek them in unhealthy ways and in unhealthy relationships. So, and the main way, and this is important, the main way that a sanguine will try to get their needs met, if they're not met by the people close to them, they will try to manipulate with charm and flattery. This is part of their temperament. They will try to get their needs met through charm and flattery. A lot of times a sanguine will adapt their behavior to the behavior that's being experienced around them, just to be accepted, just to be approved, just to belong to the group, which means that sanguine is not having their needs met, and so they're seeking for that, and it's obviously it's very dangerous. And so if you think you're a sanguine and you're hearing all these things and you want to make sure, you want to confirm, hey, you want to take the report, send me an email. You can go to our website at juangarciaenterprises.com, or you can send me an email at info@juangarciaenterprises.com, and it'll be simple. You'll receive an email with the instructions on how to do so, and then I'll get the report and we can make a time that we can discuss it. And I'm telling you, it's going to change your life, and it will also enhance the life and the relationships that you have with others. And so that's the sanguine in a nutshell. It's a very extroverted temperament, likes to be joyful, enthusiastic, can be loud at times, can exaggerate, can also manipulate, forget names. What was your name again? No. It does all these things, but it is a temperament that is definitely exciting, and God made them that way. So I believe that the more we understand people's temperament, the easier it is for us to communicate with each other and to love each other and accept each other for the way we have been wired. This has been another episode of Mind Yours, our podcast for mental health and peak performance, specifically focusing on Temperament Thursdays. Don't forget to subscribe. Thank you so much. There's been so much love, so much support. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Share the information. If you know a potential sanguine, send this episode their way so that they can get excited about it and connect with the different ways that we just described. And if you're a sanguine, reach out to me so that we can discuss how we can identify these patterns that sometimes get us in trouble, okay? We can do that. I would love to work with you, your family member, your friends, and this applies to children and teenagers. So if you're listening, if you're watching, you have a teenager or a child that is potentially a sanguine, we can do the temperament assessment as young as 7 years old. And you may be asking, well, how do they do that? There's ways that we do it. There's a specific form that we use. There's a guiding aspect of it where we can get the child as young as 7 to actually do it. We've done it, so please don't minimize it to just adults. Although we would love to help you, we can also help young people. We can also help children. Imagine if every young person, let's say middle high school age, every young person takes the temperament assessment and actually understands how they're wired. Can you imagine the impact, the change, the amazing outcome that will give not only them, the people they love, but the world? Because they're gonna understand themselves better. They're gonna be able to get their needs met in a healthy way. And when they get into a relationship, getting ready to get married, all these things, they're gonna know. They're gonna know how they're wired, and then their significant other will as well. So I hope you enjoyed it. Again, share it. We will see you next time.
Thank you for tuning into our podcast. For more information, visit our website at juangarciaenterprises.com. Our host, Juan Garcia, is available for speaking, coaching, and one-on-one counseling. You can email us at info@juangarciaenterprises.com. Until next time, remember, we only have one mind, so mind yours.